The Fox City SCORE chapter and WHBY are pleased to bring you Biz Talk, a chance for you to hear from entrepreneurs and professionals as they share their experiences from starting to sustaining growth. Learn the skills needed for your business to be successful. If you missed anything, you can catch the Biz Talk podcast at biztalkwithscore.com. And now from the Myron Construction Studio, it's Biz Talk on WHBY.
Good morning and welcome to Biz Talk with SCORE. I'm co-host Terry Pinch, and joining me this week as co-host is a new addition. It's John Drengler. John, how are you doing?
Hi, Terry. Thank you for inviting me on. It's pretty exciting to be part of Biz Talk.
Excellent. We're glad to have you here. And this week, we're talking to Miranda Demske, who is the owner of WINEaLOT Vineyards. And if I remember right, she is the only female winemaker in Wisconsin. Is that correct?
As far as I know.
Okay. So, Miranda, tell us about yourself and background and what got you to the point where you could start a winery.
Well, so kind of getting us started in 2019. Well, my husband and I, we had purchased a house quite a while ago that came with 12 acres with a lot of hay fields. And we were cash cropping the hay fields just for no reason whatsoever. And I decided I hated it. And my husband got it in my head that why don't you grow grapes? You can make wine. That sounds fun. You like wine? And I said, that sounds romantic. Let's plant a vineyard in place of all this hay field. So 2019, the first vines went in the ground and I had no plan of starting a winery. I was just going to be a farmer, basically. And in 2020 with COVID, I lost my job. And so I said, well, I have a vineyard. Let's see how far I can go with it. And we opened the doors in 2021. I spent all of the winter of 2020 learning how to make wine. I am self-taught, and I spent that entire time learning it, doing all the permitting, all the paperwork, all the government stuff, and finding a building that we could do and renovating it. All that year, we finally opened the doors in July of 2021.
And Miranda, when you were learning about planting the grapes and growing, besides just self-taught, did you visit other vineyards and learn from others in the business?
Oh, absolutely. We hit up pretty much every nearby winery around us, all the vineyards and wineries that I possibly could, and just met with them to make friends, do a little networking, ask as many questions as I possibly could. That was really, really beneficial because then when it came time I was actually planting the vines and starting to make the wine, and I'd have a question, something didn't quite go the way I understood it, I had somebody I could call on. That was really, really beneficial.
Sure. I noticed in reading one of your blogs that you had put out, you mentioned about the permitting process. I think a number of business startups always face certain hurdles and challenges. Talk a little bit about what you faced when it was coming to time for state and federal permitting that you had to do.
Yeah, the federal permitting actually wasn't too terrible. Everything kind of went by pretty well. That was really easy. It was coming down to the state level that I found the biggest challenges. The state has this 3-tier system that is very, very, very complicated. And when we completed all of the permitting, I waited for about 6 months for them to send back a declined. And they said they didn't like the structure of the business. They didn't like my husband has connections to another similar-ish business type. So we had to actually go back and completely redesign WINEaLOT, the LLC, the entire business structure from the ground up, completely revamp everything, and then reapply for those permits again. Luckily, we did finally get them resolved, and they did accept us. It took us 9 months in total to get those permits.
Did they explain why you had to reapply?
It's all that 3-tier system. You cannot have any type of connection to any other business that could possibly have an interest in you. So us being in the I want to be in manufacturing. My husband had a little bit of a connection in the retail side. So we ran into a lot of hurdles with that, which is now finally just about to be resolved this year. Those laws are changing this summer.
Okay. So you're starting in 2020 where you're just learning how to grow grapes and grow and convert into wine. How are your first attempts at it?
Horrible. They were awful. My very, very, very first wine that I ever made, I was so excited about it. I actually wanted to make a really sweet wine. At the time, that's what I was drinking, go figure. And I really did a poor job of stabilizing it. And we brought it, we packaged it up, and we brought it to a Christmas party. And I'm going around telling everybody, I'm going to be a winemaker. I'm going to start my own winery. And look at this wine I brought. I made it all by myself. You're going to love it. And it blew up all over the kitchen. It hit the ceiling. It hit all the cabinetry. It was a huge explosion. And everybody kind of looked at me like, you're going to be a winemaker, huh?
Well, in addition to the grapes and the making the wine, you have to have a building for what you're doing. Did you have a building there, or did you have to construct it? How'd you go about that?
Well, that was one of the problems we ran into was I wanted to run it out of my house. The state did not like that idea. So luckily, actually, my mother-in-law had built a shed just right around the corner from me. A great big building just sitting on its own land. It was used just to house a whole bunch of stuff that they had. And they actually had zoned it commercial with the hope that someday some business would rent it out. And so when I said I wanted a winery and the state won't let me do it out of my house, she said, oh, we'll just use the shed. So we took over half of her shed, moved everything out of half of the building, and started off in a tiny, tiny little room that was actually designed to be a woodworking shop. We cleaned it up, we revamped it, we added in all of our equipment. And so we had our production space, which at the time we only had about 4 tanks, and our little bar space that we could only seat 5 people. So that's how we opened. But then when about 1 month into opening, I realized that wasn't big enough. And we had to take over the second half of the building, which was even more full of just stored stuff. So we rushed. We probably spent another month just moving things and putting it into other people's houses. Anybody's house that had open space in their garage, it went into. And calling up anybody and everybody for help. We insulated, we added heat, air conditioning, we added bathrooms. We finished the floors. My husband built me a brand new bar. So that took us actually all winter. We finally moved into that other room in that January, and the bar and everything finally went in March, and that was in 2022.
Miranda, as you're expanding with the business needs, at the same time, you've obviously come a long way from that first Christmas party when you brought your first wine. How did you go about choosing the types of grapes and putting in more and more vines along the way? Talk about how your product itself evolved during that time.
It really started mostly at first with what I could get my hands on. When we first opened, there was a couple of vineyards that came and knocked on our door that were very close by, said, we're looking to sell our grapes to you if you're interested. So I ended up with a lot of Marquette grapes. We ended up with some Foch grapes. And then slowly I got to meet other vineyards, and it was just about what do you have on hand? What do you have on hand? And I learned through doing that and a little bit of like online research and reading about what grapes I thought were going to be tasty. What grapes do I like? So I started planting my personal favorites as well. So it's all about what I could get my hands on. I actually started I got apples, and I made an apple wine years ago, around the time we were beginning, just because somebody had an apple orchard and was willing to give me the apples. So it was just however I could get my hands on, and then what worked, I kept going, and they got better and better and better.
And I imagine you got some really good feedback from friends, and your initial customer base probably gave you very good market input as to what they enjoyed, right?
Yeah, well, you can see it just in the numbers. What sold out faster than I can make and what is still sitting on the shelf.
So, when did you realize all this stuff you were doing was really going to turn into a business, or are you just moving so fast, suddenly hit you one day?
It really just suddenly hit me one day. That day that we found out we had to move into the other room, that was really kind of a big deal. I'm like, wow, okay, this is actually working. I was really anticipating only having like 5 people in here for a year or two. I really never even imagined having 300 people come in all at once. That was kind of a big deal. But then one day I happened to walk in and I had my managers running and my employees were running and everybody's laughing and having a great time. And I just kind of walked in one day and went, wow, when did this happen?
Okay. So how did that happen? How did you build up your customer base?
A lot of word of mouth. That was really our primary. I started pushing a lot of social media, which we have a very heavy Facebook presence. Instagram is growing. We did do a lot of advertising. We were actually on the radio. We were in the papers. We ended up having a TV commercial for a little while. So outside advertising like that, but really my biggest thing really has been word of mouth. People come in, they have a great time, they tell their friends, and then I see it over and over and over. Somebody that came in last week, they're here now today with a whole new group of people. That's really been our biggest asset.
And so I assume, and we'll talk about it later in the show too, but I assume starting to add these events and activities that made it more than just the wine itself, but the atmosphere and the feeling around it helped a lot.
Yeah, I found people, they come in sometimes for just to have some wine, maybe a little food, but really they come in more for bigger events. They like to come in for a reason. So we have a lot of live music. We've been doing more brunch events. We do DJ bingos. We have a meat raffle fundraiser coming up. We do all sorts of big other events to try and draw different and more crowds. And just recently, this past winter, we actually added a pickleball court. So now you can come in and play pickleball and have some wine and have some food. So just giving people more of a reason to come in rather than just coming in to have a glass of wine.
So before we head into our first break, the one question that pops to mind again is you started this in the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So what were your expectations for this business that you were starting in the middle of a pandemic?
I didn't really even know what I was doing. I just knew that I couldn't work in corporate America anymore. So I'm like, well, let's just try it. I really didn't look really any further than tomorrow or what's the next job. I viewed it almost like doing a big project. So here's task 1. Okay, check. Here's task 2. Okay, check. And I just kept moving through until one day I realized how far I've come. Where are you going next? And I had to actually sit down and plan something. But really, it actually, in the pandemic, it worked out perfectly for when we opened. Things were just starting to open, but you had to be outside. You still had to be distanced. Us only having a space of 5 people, but a whole outdoor area that you could go was perfect. Everybody came in. They got some drinks. We had garage doors open. It was very open air, open space. It really went off without a flaw. It was perfect timing.
Great. We're at the spot for our first break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after these messages.
Welcome back. We're glad you joined this morning for Biz Talk. Our guest is Miranda Demske, the owner of WINEaLOT, wine pub and vineyards in Greenleaf. Before continuing our conversation with Miranda, I'd like to tell you a little bit about SCORE Fox Cities. The local Fox Cities chapter supports an 8-county area from Appleton to Fond du Lac and Wapaka to Montello. We have about 35 volunteer mentors, each an expert in their field, offering entrepreneurs no-cost and confidential mentoring. These areas of expertise include strategic planning, sales and marketing, IT and social media, finance and accounting, help with cash flow, asset and workflow management, human resource, and best practice sharing, whether it's a retail or a business to business. In order to register for a no-cost confidential mentoring session and learn more about the Fox Cities SCORE chapter, please visit our website at score.org/Fox Cities. You can learn how SCORE can assist you with starting or growing your business by completing an online application for a mentoring session. Simply fill out the form and submit it to SCORE. Within a few days, a SCORE mentor will reach out to you to set up a meeting. Remember, SCORE is no cost and offers experts who can provide assistance in many different areas of your business. To get started, our website again is score.org/Fox Cities. As well, SCORE Fox Cities is always looking for new mentors and subject matter experts. If you have experience that you'd like to share with a small business owner, whether they're starting up or looking to grow, we'd love to talk to you. We welcome volunteers with expertise in all aspects of business. Small business owners need your help, and your experience can make a real difference in their success. Personally, I've been a SCORE mentor for over a year. After decades in the business world, building brands and striving to delight customers, I find it wonderfully rewarding to give back through SCORE, collaborating with fellow mentors and assisting entrepreneurs who have the passion and vision for building their own brands and thus delighting their own customers. So go to score.org/Fox Cities, click on the volunteer button, and fill out the short application. We'll happily get back to you to discuss further. And again, thank you for joining us on Biz Talk this morning. Now back to our conversation with Miranda Demske from WINEaLOT. Miranda, a couple of things we were talking about in the last section I wanted to follow up on. One is you grew at a pretty rapid pace. You had all the issues with your permitting. You were working through the pandemic. And you mentioned that one day you walked in and there was just a buzz of business. Your workers were all on the same page and it seemed to really click. But at the same time, there's always those, we'll call them the back office things, purchasing, financial accounting needs, et cetera, insurance and all the things that go with this. Were those things easy to put together for you? Or, how did those support issues come about to help WINEaLOT as you were growing?
Really, the biggest challenge with that was understanding what I actually needed. Nobody really tells you a checklist of all the things that you have to have and who to talk to when you're starting up. So understanding, what do I need? What kind of business insurance do I need? How much insurance do I need? What is workers' comp? How do I even begin to get that? All these different just backhand, behind the scenes permits and policies. I didn't understand what any of it was. I didn't know who to get it from or anything. That was really the biggest hurdle. Once I found out what I needed, and my family members actually put me into contact with the right people. My mother-in-law had met a woman who did insurance out of Denmark. I gave her a call and said, I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I need insurance. She said, oh, yeah, I got you. And she just took care of it. Doing the accounting and stuff. We already had an accountant, luckily. So I was able to call her and go, I don't know what I'm doing. What do I need to do? And she set me up with our bookwork program and made sure I understood how to do it all. So luckily, just family members and friends got me into contact with their person, and they were able to, they're like, oh yeah, I get that question all the time. Here, let me show you. And it was so helpful.
That's good. That's good. You were also mentioning before about in your learning, whether it was the growing of the grapes and all the processes, you talked to other winemakers in the area where you're located on the escarpment. It's prime wine growing area, grape growing area. There's a lot of competition, whether it's Door County or in your immediate area. How do you feel that you stand out and help differentiate WINEaLOT from those competitors and those others in the area?
WINEaLOT we're just different in all aspects. I mean, our name in itself stands out. It's a humorous name, WINEaLOT. We're definitely not a super high-end, pinky in the air type of winery. You don't have to dress up in a beautiful dress or suit and tie or by any means of any kind. You do not even have to know what wine is. You don't have to like wine if you don't want to. We have other options. We're just more of a casual, down-home Wisconsin vibe where you're just as much as our neighbor, whether you came from Sheboygan, Door County, Swamico, it doesn't matter. You're still our neighbor, just like every other Wisconsinite. We're all friends. We're all close. That's really how we stand out the most, is being more friendly and casual and down home about it. But actually the wine industry is very, very friendly as it is. I was able to make a lot of friends with all of our close by competitors, so to speak, because we offer something different. If you want a little bit more higher end feel, you can go to the other winery. If you want more fruit wines and stuff, you can go up to Door County. So there's so many other options. We're able to be friendly and it's more of a friendly competition instead of an aggressive one.
You also
All right,
participate.
we're at a point where we'll get to our second break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score on WHBY, and we'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to Biz Talk. We're talking to Miranda Demske from WINEaLOT Vineyards and Wine Pub in Greenleaf. And before we get back to Miranda, I have a couple updates I want to give you in education. So if you go to the Fox City Score website at score.org/Fox Cities, you'll see in the upper center of the screen, there's a tab for workshops and events. And we have literally hundreds of different webinars and live events that are on there, and you can learn just about anything about business that you want if you go out and search it. But I just wanted to mention 2 live events that are coming up that may be of use for people. And the first one is simple tips for managing your finances. And this one is focused very much on what the small business owner needs to know around their personal and business finances to help manage things going forward. And that's on February 22nd. And another one on February 27th that can be very helpful, as we've in fact talked about it earlier, is business insurance basics. So what do you need for business insurance? How do you go about getting it? So those are both live events. You'll find them again at score.org/Fox Cities, and click on workshops and events and click on upcoming events. And there's a lot more out there. And you go into the webinars and you'll find literally thousands more. So go out, take a look, and find what you need, and you'll learn an awful lot from that. So as we get back to the show now, we're talking with Miranda again. And Miranda, I want to talk about different aspects of the business that you've added in, because really you're less than 4 years old, or about 4 years old, and you've got an incredibly broad array of offerings already. So I want to talk through some of them. And one of the ones that I know was one of the first you started from your website is around merchandising. So selling shirts and glasses and other things. First, why did that come first? And how have you been using that to build up your business?
Yeah, so we actually started making and selling merchandise before we even had our winery permits, before we really did anything. WINEaLOT barely even existed when we started that. So really what I was doing was selling the brand. I was selling the story of it. So it made it so I could create a website. I could create an online presence and start attracting attention from people. So merchandising, it brought up so that we had about 1,000 people following a Facebook page of a winery that didn't actually exist. So when we went to open the winery, finally, I already had 1,000 people ready to go. So that helped a ton just in building the story and building our brand. And then on top of that, they buy the merchandise, they bought our stuff, and it all had our logo on it, plus some kind of fun way of playing with our logo. WINEaLOT is an easy word to mess with. So you can add, I like to wine a lot. WINEaLOT, it's what I do. Stuff like that. People like the fun of it. So they wear it, or they use the cups for it or something. They bring it to parties, and now they're my walking, talking billboards. So now they're spreading word of mouth just by buying a product for a business that really actually hadn't started up yet. And actually, we've been doing that more. We grow the merchandise more. I have my employees wear the merchandise on busy days, and people just they think it's cool. It is fun. I like wearing it. It attracts a lot of attention.
So that brand name was just really critical anyhow, but probably having that 9 months really helped you in some ways.
Yeah, it did. I got to spend 9 months working on creating who we were, but also on top of that, it was a good learning opportunity for me too. I was able to learn what marketing is, learn who my customers are going to be, and learn how to reach them. So that was a good opportunity.
Yeah. As we talked to you, you did an awful lot of learning in 2 years. And it's almost like what you don't know can't hurt you. So you dove into this and were drinking from a fire hose and learned an incredible amount, but it just seems like you did a lot of really good things, and the merchandising is one of those things that makes a lot of sense now that you've seen it. I never would have thought of it, but I wouldn't have thought you could sell merchandising without a product, but these marketing guys know that anyhow. So another one that really stands out to me is you've added food, but really kind of a unique selection of food too. So it's not a wide menu, but you're doing things that you can do well and fit very well with having fun in a vineyard or winery. How did you make that decision? Because there's complexities that come with making food. And how has it worked for you?
Well, I love to cook. I've always loved food. I love cooking food. I just like that stuff. So I knew that we had to do something. We started off with just a prepackaged food license. And that helped a lot. People appreciated it, but it wasn't quite reaching what everybody wanted. I actually went to another winery that sold a lot of pizza. That was their big push. And I was like, you know what? Pizza is my favorite food. I love pizza. I'll bet you everybody else loves pizza just as much as I do. We need to learn how to make pizza. So we started off actually just with frozen pizzas, and I eventually wanted to learn how to make the pizzas. The pizzas were growing so fast. I had 6 pizza ovens running at one time. They were dying out. I was replacing them every 6 months. So I ended up buying a much bigger stone oven pizza, and now we make all of our own pizzas by hand to order. Then we do paninis. We have a panini grill. We have cheese and cracker platters, all sorts of stuff like that. Really, my biggest thing though is avoiding to get a hood vent. Those are very expensive. I don't want to get one as much as I can avoid it. So everything that we make requires equipment that does not have to have a hood vent. So that was very, very challenging and interesting to learn about.
Miranda, when you're making the food and processing, are you sharing space with your wine processing area as well?
Oh yes, we are. That's all in the same room. So yeah, the kitchen kind of got squished in around the production tanks a little bit. So it is a tight space, but we do make it work for a little while.
Sure. And I think you mentioned it before, around your food and your offering, you do some special events as well. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Just last night, actually, for Valentine's Day, we did a special Valentine's pasta dinner. So I made the bolognese sauce. I made the soup special. I made the salad. We made it all by scratch. I spent all day cooking it, and then we were able to serve a very delicious 3-course dinner for Valentine's Day. That was our first. That was really cool.
And do you take reservations for events like that, or?
The large ones we do, yeah.
Sure.
And you're still able to walk in. It's just trying to monitor how many can we anticipate. It keeps it a little bit easier than guessing.
Yeah, there's a trend going on with the people who take like converted farm areas, barns, to hold wedding receptions and events like that. Do you try to promote those sorts of things as well to come into WINEaLOT?
We do a lot of private events like birthday parties, baby showers. We've done anniversary parties. We did a rehearsal dinner. I don't do the weddings right now just because it is tight. We can only hold so many cars. So that's my biggest concern. And also the laws are just changing, but otherwise we weren't allowed to be open past 9 p.m. So that makes for a reception, that you'd have to cut them off at 9. Nobody likes that. So, but those laws are changing this year. We'll be able to stay open later. So we are looking at starting up weddings once that does.
So if you think about that as you add weddings, are you going to have to expand and build more space?
Yes, we are. Yeah, we're actually currently in the process of talking to a contractor about another building on the same property.
And would that, as you do that, is that going to open up other opportunities too? Other things you're thinking about, like the hood vent?
Possibly. I still would like to avoid a hood vent. They're very, very expensive, ridiculously expensive. But yeah, I would like to do like a wood fire pizza oven that can actually cook a lot more different stuff. I've seen a lot of restaurants in my traveling that have this really cool wood fire pizza oven that they use to cook everything from pizza to soup. So I actually kind of want to get one of those if I can. And then we'll have room for more tables. With that other building too, we'll be able to host a smaller private party and still be open to the public. Otherwise, right now we have to close down during private parties. So that'll allow for us to be able to do both at once.
So, thinking of the hood vent though, that would change your business a lot. It almost seems like it doesn't really fit in with a lot of what you're doing.
Not a ton. I've actually even seen fryers that don't require a hood vent. They specifically show that they're not required and you can still have a deep fryer. So just kind of being careful about what the equipment is that you have. You can usually work your way around it. My panini press can do a lot more than just grill a sandwich. You know, just kind of thinking about how other ways of using the equipment.
Okay. So another activity you just added, and it's one that when I go out in the mornings or out driving somewhere, I'll see tennis courts converted into pickleball courts, and they're full. So you added a pickleball court. Tell us about what drove that and how you went about doing it.
I did. It's crazy, but I did it anyway. So basically, it was coming into fall. Summer was just ending. Fall was just starting. And our past winters have been very, very slow. It's our slowest time of the year. And I was trying to figure out we have a lot of momentum going right now. We're doing really good. We have a lot of interest. How do I keep that going in the dead of winter? Our location is a little bit out of the way, so people don't just happen to drive past us very frequently. So I just started one day looking around, us being right next to a golf course. I know that people come to visit them because they're in a league. So I started researching indoor sporting. What is the biggest sports activity currently right now? Well, pickleball. Okay. So do I have room for a pickleball court? Well, I looked around the room. Why, yes, I do, actually. It just fits. So I bought a pickleball net on Amazon, and then we put up a curtain to separate it. So it's still in the room. You can still watch everybody, but you can still also have your seating area and you have your pickleball area. Everything's movable. Everything. I can take it down or put it up all in 5 minutes or less. And we just put it out and said, come play pickleball. And because of that, our sales are up considerably from the past few winters. We never have a dead day anymore. There's always somebody around. That's so cool. It's just crazy.
Miranda, you've got a lot going on, and between special dinners to getting activities for what would normally be an off season like pickleball, you're coming out with new wines, and unique ways of growing and processing them. Besides that great word of mouth, how are you using online? How are you finding other ways to merchandise and sell all the great things that are going on?
Really, I mean, it's social media, lot of using the resources of just the township too, and I know like some of the news stations, they have events that you can post about, add your own events to. I'm a part of all of that to spread, be it making sure that our Google Maps is up to date at all times and making sure that has a presence as well. I actually had somebody come in one day that said they were trying to determine which winery they wanted to go to, us or some other of the very close by wineries. And they chose to come to us because we had a bigger presence, a more current presence on Google. So that just kind of staying on top of things and making sure that I'm communicating to everybody through the online platform has been very important.
How are your sales tracking through online?
Well, it's hard to track the sales when, other than, who's our visitors and who's the people that have been visiting. I don't do a lot of online sales per se. We don't do a lot of purchases through our website currently. That is an area of growth that I want to work on. But really, all of our online presence is just more about people finding out who we are, more for information purposes, and then coming to visit us after that.
Sure. So if you look at selling wines online, does that start to get complicated too when you start crossing state lines and things like that?
It is. It's very complicated. It's a separate permit through the state in order to ship wine, which I actually I don't know if I was smart enough or just kind of clueless, but I applied for that permit and got that at the same time that we got our operating permits. And I didn't know what it was, but I just got it. So I'm like, that might be useful. And I didn't use it up until actually this past Christmas. I finally was like, we can actually ship wine. I have a permit that allows that. But it is complicated. I found another whole software program that actually specializes in shipping of alcohol. So I was able to create that. Now it's really just about pushing it and marketing, because nobody knew that we could ship it because I never promoted it. So that's a new thing yet.
Okay. So another opportunity for the future for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So, a couple other things, just as you look at where you are with the wines you make, are you looking at expanding those offerings now?
Yes. We are actually currently in the process of a project that'll grow us we're currently making 1,000 gallons a year. I would like to make 5,000 gallons a year. So we are actually right now working on a project of that, trying to figure out what we need and how can we secure the financing for it.
Okay. And as you do that, are you able to grow up the vineyards yourself, or is you're gonna have to bring in some more grapes?
This is going to require me to purchase more grapes, but actually that's the beauty of this plan. We are WINEaLOT solely focused on Wisconsin grown products. So our wines are all made from Wisconsin grown grapes. And actually, most recently, us being on an American viticultural area, grape growing area for wine, there's a lot of vineyards popping up, but the vineyards aren't able to sell all of their grape crop to the wineries. The wineries are either purchasing from California or Washington or anything like that, or they don't have enough production capacity to handle this many vineyards. So by us growing our production level, we'll be able to support more Wisconsin vineyards and be able to support this growing farming industry.
What's the bigger investment for you?
Too? Are the number of vineyards growing rapidly as well as the wineries?
Yeah. Ever since we got that AVA certification, the vineyards are popping up left and right. Everybody's planting grapes right now. It's crazy.
Okay. We are at the time for our last break. You're listening to Biz Talk with Score and WHBY, and we will be right back. Welcome back to Biz Talk. I'd like to thank our sponsors who bring Biz Talk to you each weekend. We couldn't present Biz Talk without their generous support. Thank you to Haling & Associates. Haling & Associates helps small businesses and individuals not just prepare tax returns, but plan for taxes, helping to minimize taxes for this year and beyond. Haling & Associates, personal connection, positive results. And a special thank you to the Business News for promoting our program in the biweekly business newspaper serving Northeast Wisconsin. If you aren't already subscribing to Business News, you should. The paper is delivered bi-weekly and contains relevant and useful information about the business community in Northeast Wisconsin. And again, a big thank you to our sponsors. They do help us bring the show to everyone out there. And thank you for listening. So now we're going to turn back to Miranda. And Miranda, could you let everybody know how they can find WINEaLOT Vineyards both in person and online?
Well, we are located at 6123 County Trunk PP, as in Paul, in Greenleaf, Wisconsin. We are right next door to Hilly Haven Golf Course. If you just keep going up the hill to the south, you will find us right off of hole number 3. Otherwise online, WINEALOTvineyards.com. We are also on Facebook and Instagram as well.
Okay, so what's the future hold for WINEaLOT?
Well, my plan is to grow our production, so from 1,000 gallons to 5,000 gallons in a year. By 2026 is the hope. We are already talking to contractors and trying to find financing, looking at all the equipment that's going to be needed. By growing to 5,000 gallons, the state law will allow us to open a second location. So I'm hoping to have more locations and eventually franchise nationwide.
Oh, that's wonderfully ambitious to go nationwide with things. First of all, I want to apologize for any golf balls I've errantly hit off the third hole at Hilly Haven that ended up in your property. But I was reading an article from Business News last August, and you were quoted of saying how important perseverance is in your efforts. And I think you've given many examples. For our listeners, what would you say in terms of advice going forward, whether you're starting out or growing like you are? What would you say to folks in running their business?
Really, the biggest thing is always, if you have an idea, just go for it. That's really what WINEaLOT kind of strived on, is try it. What's the worst that could happen? Just try it small, and if it works, you can grow it from there. And if it doesn't work, well, pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and do it again. Doing the permits, my husband basically picked me off the floor and said, well, what are you going to do about this when they denied me? And I said, well, I'm going to do it again. So that's exactly what I did. And every time it's just a new idea. So just try it. If it works, great. If it doesn't, well, try something else.
So as you look at the business, and obviously I doubt you assumed it would grow this fast, this quickly. Okay. But as you look at where the business is going to go over the next few years and with the expansion, what does that mean for how you manage the business? Are you already thinking about what you have to do to support that growth in terms of employees and other people?
Yeah, we are. We hired a manager that is new, and I'm trying to make sure that we can pass off some of the just employees stuff and some of the little tasks that I just don't have time for, inventory, the ordering of stuff. So it's just handing off a lot of those day-to-day tasks over to employees and management. And then hiring help also in the winemaking area. We're definitely I'm looking to hire an assistant winemaker, and then we'll need more help in the vineyards as well. And if we create more locations, I'm going to have to recreate all those staff again at the new spot. But the biggest plan for me is to get myself out of the day-to-day operations so that I actually have the brain ability, the creativity to run otherwise.
Will you continue to do the winemaking?
Miranda.
You continue to do the winemaking?
I'll continue, yeah, because it is my recipe, it is my wine. I will be still involved, but the idea is to hand off some of those more tedious tasks that I don't want to do.
Okay. Well, thank you for being a guest on the show. It was really great to hear your story. It's not often we hear a story of somebody who's started a business and grown it this fast in 4 years. It's really fantastic to hear. We really appreciate it. For all our listeners out there, you'll be able to hear this story again in a few weeks. It'll be on our website, biztalkwithscore.com. So thank you very much to Miranda, and thank you to everybody for listening. It's been a great show, and we hope you have a great weekend. Take care, everybody.